Great. Hi, guys. I think we're ready to start. Thank you for everyone joining our webinar today and happy Wednesday. Nice to meet you all. I'm Izzy. I head up the marketing team in Diginius. Thank you for taking your time out of your, I'm sure, very busy day today at 4 p.m. on a Wednesday. But yeah, it's really great to see some familiar names, I think, and some new names as well. And I believe we've got people from all over the globe here, which is really cool to see. I know we've got people from US, UK, Spain, Asia. So yeah, really cool to see a lot of global people here from all around the world. But yeah, I think this webinar has come at a great time with what I'm sure you all saw, the recent enforcement of Microsoft UET consent mode in UK, EEA, and Switzerland. And we just want to make sure that we're here to support everyone on this latest change so that we can have kind of a better understanding of why the change matters. I'm just going to go over the agenda quickly, a little bit of housekeeping just before we kind of dive in to the webinar itself. So agenda-wise, we're going to have a brief introduction from Chester Yang, who is our program manager here at Diginius. He manages our Microsoft Partner Program, and then we'll get into the bulk of the webinar. So we're very lucky to have Senior Partner Manager here with us, Julia from Microsoft Advertising, and she's going to help us kind of better understand these recent UET consent mode changes. I just do want to note, due to the time, we won't be able to answer any live questions live on this webinar today, but do feel free to flood the live chat with questions, and Diginius will follow up as well with any answers to these questions. But yeah, I think, well, without further ado, we will go ahead with Chester if you want to share your screen to start.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Right. So yeah, very brief introduction about the Genius because I know there's quite a few people on the call that already know about us, but we'll briefly go through who we are and why we're here today. Yeah, we're the Genius. We're the London-based tech company, and we're best known for Microsoft Advertising's largest global channel partner. So working very closely with Julia and the Microsoft team to support agency get better performance on Microsoft. And yeah, and I guess very briefly, yeah, I'm the program manager here at the Genius, so I kind of oversee the kind of program as well as the relationship with Microsoft, supporting agencies. We currently work with over 1,000 agencies in 60 markets, and through this kind of partnership, we have recently also been awarded Global Channel Partner of the Year by Microsoft. So we're really happy with that. So love to share the news with you. And very briefly on the kind of people that doesn't really know about us, we work with agency through kind of these four pillars. And today's session is kind of a snippet of how we essentially work with our agency partners on the daily basis on supporting them through various kind of requests, technical requests, or even with ticket escalations and so on. We do provide agencies that work with on the partner program financial incentives such as the vouchers for new accounts as well as feature adoptions. We also assign you a dedicated kind of account managers to really work with you on the strategies of your growth of the accounts and so on. So if you're interested in any of those, I'm sure we'll be able to kind of take on your requests. We also support with our the Genius Insight software, which is our technologies that we've been building for the past 15 years that kind of integrates into various different app platforms. So, for, omni-channel reporting as well as ad management for optimizations and so on. We also do kind of client referrals for, I guess, clients looking for PPC agencies or marketing services through this partner program as well. Yeah, so that's myself. I'll pass it on to Julia and we'll dive into the main topic of the session today. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Chester. Thank you. Let me just quickly share my screen. Okay. Yeah, hi everyone. Chester, can we quickly confirm that everyone can see the presentation? Okay, great. Hi everyone. Really glad to be here today. So my name is Julia, and as Izzy mentioned, I'm a senior partner manager at Microsoft Advertising, and I've been working in performance marketing for almost 10 years now, and I very well understand the challenges around the measurement and policies and different enforcements that are coming into place. So therefore, I'm very glad to be here today and talk about consent mode for UET tech, and of course, importance of implementing it. I thought I would provide a fun fact about myself, just so we know each other a bit better. So before diving into digital advertising, I was actually spending 16 years of my life as a professional tap dancer, touring with my dance team. It was a fun time. And as you can feel, I've always been drawn to the creative side of things, and that's what eventually led me to marketing. Okay, let's dive into the topic. Izzy already covered housekeeping, so no need to stop here, but I'll just highlight that we will not take live questions today, mostly because of the very specific topic, and each case should be reviewed in particular. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll be happy to look into them afterwards. The agenda for today is presented, so we'll talk about the EU regulations that are coming into place. We will talk about what consent mode is, how it works in Microsoft Advertising, how to set it up correctly, and how to verify consent transmission. I will also provide you with some key resources that you will be able to access from the presentation. We have other resources available for you upon request. So why it matters? You probably know that as digital footprints grow, our personal information has become crucial to safeguard, and not just for regulatory compliance, but mostly for, most importantly, for establishing trust with our consumers. And Microsoft Advertising has taken a significant step in this direction by enforcing the explicit provision of user consent signal by May 5th, 2025. So this year, we have around 1 month to implement this. And this initiative highlights our unwavering commitment to putting user privacy at the forefront of our priorities. Now, let's talk about why this really matters for you. So providing user signal consent signals isn't just about checking a compliance box, right? It's also about making sure that your business stays on the right side of privacy laws, that you are building trust with your audience, and that you still get insights that you need to run effective campaigns. So first, privacy regulations. With consent mode, you're aligning with laws like GDPR, which means you avoid potential fines and you keep your advertising practices compliant. The second reason is user trust. People care more than ever about how their data is collected and used. When you respect their choices, you build a stronger relationship with them, making them more likely to engage with your brand. And finally, it's also about advertising performance. So even when users don't give full consent, consent mode still allows you to gather some important insights and information. This means you can keep optimizing your campaigns, improving targeting, and tracking conversions, all while staying privacy compliant. So in the end, it's a win-win. You respect user privacy, and you also stay, you're also driving better results for your business. Now let's talk about what consent mode is. So I wanted to break it down into simplest example as possible. So imagine you walk into your favorite bakery, and the owner greets you and asks, "Would you like me to remember your usual order for next time?" You can say yes, and then they will keep track of what you like, or you can say no, and then they won't. That's kind of how consent mode works. When someone visits a website, they get to decide whether they want their data to be remembered. If they say yes, the website can collect information to help improve ads and track what's working. If they say no, the website respects that choice, but still finds a way to work without personal data. It's all about giving people control over their privacy while making sure businesses can still gather useful insights to keep things running smoothly. If you are using Universal Event Tracking, UET, or any of Microsoft's like Universal Pixel, Segment, or Conversion Pixels, this applies to you as well. And essentially, consent mode adjusts how cookies are used based on the visitor's choice. This is especially important for advertisers in the European Economic Area, the United Kingdom, and Switzerland, where privacy laws are very strict. So how it works in Microsoft Advertising? Remember bakery example, right? So, well, think of this like the bakery's way of handling customer preferences. If someone says, yes, remember my order, the system works as usual. If they say no, don't remember me, the bakery still finds a way to keep running, maybe by looking at overall trends instead of individual orders. That's basically what happens here. Microsoft's tracking tags adjust based on user consent. The key setting is called add storage, and it has two options. Granted, which means that users are okay with cookies and everything just runs normally. Ads can store data, track conversions, and optimize performance, or denied. This means no cookies. So Microsoft won't store personal data. But the system still works by using privacy-friendly modeling to fill in the gaps. If you're using Universal Event Tracking or Microsoft Universal Pixel, Segment or Conversion Pixel, this applies to you, and consent signals can also be shared with Microsoft via the AAB's Transparent and Consent Framework. We'll talk about it a bit later and look into specific examples how to implement this. Okay, so how can you set up consent mode? There are three main ways to implement consent mode, and you only need to choose one, the one that works best for you. So first option is to implement consent mode on your Universal Event Tracking directly. So if you're using Microsoft Advertising, you have UET tag, you can apply it directly on this tag. And second option would be using IAB's Transparency and Consent Framework, TCF. You can pass the consent signals directly in a TCF 2.0 string or use your own consent management platform, CMP. And lastly, if you're using tools like Google Tag Manager, it's also really easy to integrate Microsoft's consent mode with those third-party data management tools. So in short, you just need to pick one of these methods that works best for you and send the consent signals to Microsoft. Let's now take a look, closer look on each of these options in more detail. So first option is to implement it directly into UET. On the slide, you will see an example of the setup code. So this code is placed on every page load. This is very important that it's on every page. And it sets the default consent setting for your website. So the important part is this add storage label value can be set to either granted or denied. In this example, we're setting it to denied by default. So meaning no cookies for advertising are stored unless the user gives their consent. Once the user decides whether to give consent or not, you will need to update this setting on every page to reflect the user's choice. This is why it's important to use the same code across your pages. And for a smoother experience, we recommend adding this script to your head tag so that consent mode is set by default on each page and updates whenever the user changes their consent setting. You can also prevent UET from sending events to Microsoft. This is a bit technical, but you can set UET value MSDN cookie to value of 1. And this would not send any information to UET. There is a hyperlink that you can access and read a bit more if you're interested in this case particularly. So what's important here, if you are using consent mode, always pass either a granted or denied value for add storage on every page load. based on the user's cookie consent choice. In this way, we would be able to read it correctly and apply it to your data. For most countries, if the consent setting is not set, UET defaults to granted. For European Economic Area, the UK and Switzerland, Microsoft Advertising is gradually enforcing consent mode, and on May 5th, we will enforce it in the European Economic Area, UK and Switzerland. So if granted signal isn't passed when the user gives consent, you will lose out on valuable conversion data. So in case where consent mode is enforced after May 5th, the default value will be denied until the user actively grants consent. So that's the key information to remember here. You need to pass the consent or the default value will be denied and we won't be able to record conversions of those users. Great, let's move to next options. So let's explore how the IAB transparency and consent framework works with UET. So it helps you to stay compliant as well. And TCF standardizes how consent signals are collected and shared with platforms like Microsoft Advertising, for example. So it helps ensure that you are handling user consent in the right way, especially with GDPR requirements. By using your consent management platform, you can pass these consent signals directly to UET, allowing for accurate tracking and respecting user preferences. On the next slide, I provided the supported consent management platforms where you can directly implement UET, or you can use Transparency Consent Framework version 2.0 with UET tag, and the key steps to follow are on the slide. I will just quickly mention them. So first, you need to ensure that you're using UET tag. So go on your website and check that tag is implemented. And this is essential to integrate with the TCF string. Next, you will need to adopt TCF version 2.0 consent management platform. So once this is in place, you will add a code snippet. You can see the example on the screen above your UET tag code. And this will allow UET to read and process consent string. So the TCF framework uses purposes, so-called purposes, the value, to organize how data is processed. And each purpose is linked to a registered lawful basis for data collection. On the under useful links, I provided a link to how implement transparency consent framework. So don't worry if you don't understand this very well right now, and if it's too technical. It's very well described on our help article, and you can just follow the steps, and you will be able to see all the purposes and their definition depending on the signal of transparency consent framework. So again, on the screen, you see just an example of this code that will be implemented upon UET, and in this way, we will be able to receive it and apply it to your data. And yeah, as I mentioned previously, here's the supported consent management platforms, and those are hyperlinks as well. So if you're using one of those, you can get direct steps how to implement consent mode for UET on each of those consent management platforms. Okay. And lastly, Google Tag Management tag. So you can use Google Tag Manager as well to implement UET, to pass consent mode to UET tag. And Google's consent management platform partner program integrates with most of CMPs. So if you're using GTM with the supported CMP, consent signals can be directly retrieved from GTM. This streamlines the process, ensuring that your UET tags are in sync with the user's consent status, and you can easily read it. So to get started, you can follow the installation instructions. Again, you have the hyperlinks for the UET template via GTM. And there are two methods for obtaining user consent. The first one is to inherit initial consent. And this method is disabled by default. And the second one is enable consent updates. And this one is enabled by default. So this method ensures that the UET only triggers after the user clicks the consent button. However, if consent is provided before the tag loads, it might not capture this update. So in such cases, we recommend enabling the first option, the inherit initial user consent, to ensure accurate consent tracking. So from our experience, we've noticed that without a CMP, the initial user consent will default to a particular setting. Because of this, we've disabled the inherit initial user consent option by default, and you should only enable it in specific cases where you need to inherit the initial consent status. So finally, it's important to know that additional actions might be needed to properly configure and integrate the system. So review your CMP settings and ensure everything aligns with your needs and the user consent behavior aligns with your user consent behavior that you want to track. And the implementation through GTM tag is a bit longer, but again, we have a really descriptive guidance with every step that you need to follow available on our help page, and you will have a hyperlink to follow this. Great. We're actually moving really fast. So we're almost at the end of our presentation, and now I will talk a bit how to verify consent transmission. I think it's one of the most challenging stages. So you've followed the guidance, you've implemented the consent, how you make sure that it's actually passing the consent from users. So to validate your consent mode, and how is it implemented, you can use UET Tag Helper. So it's a browser plugin, and it's available for both Microsoft Edge and Google Chrome. And for Microsoft Edge, yeah, the steps are similar. So you just need to download the UET Tag Helper. You need to add it as an extension. And once installed, the UET Tag Helper icon will appear in your browser. And after you see the extension, you can verify consent mode. So to do this, we will focus on the specific parameter. You can see on the screen, it's called ASC, so consent state. And it's under your UET event area. So you would need to navigate into events and then scroll down until you see ASC parameter. The ASC parameter indicates whether user consent was granted or denied. And before consent is given, the parameter should show denied or no events should fire. And after consent is provided, the ASC parameter will show granted for this specific event. So you can use the UET Tag Helper to monitor and confirm the parameter that it reflects the correct status for all UET events. And this is actually it. We went really fast through the content, so thank you very much for listening. As I mentioned, you'll have additional resources available. We know that the topic is very important, so please do reach out to the Diginius team and connect with us to help you install UET Tag and consent mode correctly. If you have any questions, as I mentioned, you can paste them in the Q&A area and we will answer them afterwards. And please do make sure that you implement consent mode by May 5th, so you still track conversions from your valuable users and you don't lose any data. So thank you very much for listening, and I'm passing it back to Izzy, I believe. Thank you.
Cool, thanks, Julia. Chester, I know you have a last kind of slide if you want to bring that up at the end. But yeah, thanks, Julia. I think that was a really kind of insightful, short and sweet webinar, but we just wanted to kind of make sure that we had this resource for everyone to, you know, better understand this resource enforcement. So hopefully everyone was able to gain a better understanding of UET consent mode. So yeah, thanks, Julia. Just a quick CTA for any next steps that you may have. If you are already a client of ours, I know I can see a few familiar names here, and you do have any other questions that you want to bring up, whether it's about the consent mode or just generally, feel free to reach out to your account manager and they'll be able to kind of guide you and help you with any questions that you might have. Alternatively, if you're not working with Diginius currently and you do want to know more about the program that Chester was covering, you can reach out with this email here, but we will send a full follow-up of the webinar. So we have a recording, any of the questions that were asked in the chat today, we'll send over in a follow-up email. So feel free to respond to that email as well if you don't manage to take down the details here. But yeah, again, a big thank you to Julia for joining us today. I think it was a very helpful webinar for everyone. Just do want to plug, we do have another webinar coming up with Julia as well on the 22nd of April, same time, so 4 p.m. GMT time, and we're going to be covering Microsoft Advertising kind of PMAX campaigns. So if you are interested, do keep that time free on your calendar, but expect an invite and an email with all the information regarding that in your inboxes this week, if you are interested in learning about PMAX. Again, a big thank you to Julia and Chester for joining us, and thank you to everyone for taking some time out of your afternoon to join us today, and have a great rest of your Wednesday. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.